The MSI Rumble stage of 2021 will be beginning in a few hours as of the posting of this video. And I wanted to put out the hot take that I had out there after reviewing some of the VODs to kind of figure out where these teams are at the moment. And that take is that I think the Mad Lions has an outsider's chance of winning the MSI. Now, given all that said, RNG are still going to be the favorites. So to first understand this, I'm going to explain the two schools of thought, which is the LPL school of thought and the LCK school of thought when it comes to approaching the game at this point of time. Where the LPL teams, they go for what we call the map control or tempo efficient approach towards the game, where the LCK teams go for a team fight or farm efficiency approach towards the game. What this map control slash tempo efficiency approach to the game wants to do is that they want to win the game through using deeper silent pushes to create manpower advantages to set up for objectives. Whereas the LCK style wants to win the game through acquiring superior stats to crush their opponents in teamfights, be it through hitting certain scaling power points or by having a superior teamfighting composition through draft. No, the LPL teams they tend to play on two lanes to create deep side lanes, whereas the other style they would want to forego the map control in exchange for playing on three lanes to maximize farm. And then what they do is they converge an ARAM in the mid lane when they want to contest the Rift Herald or Baron, depending on which neutral objective that they're contesting. How both these teams use Rift Herald is very telling as well as to which style they go for. With the map control style teams, they would try to use the Rift Herald very aggressively to set up a dive on the side lane to break the turret open so that they can open up the map and create deep side lanes to advance their strategy, whereas the Rift Herald is seen as an economic tool for the teamfight slash farm efficiency style teams. And picture below is a representation of how these two teams approach the dragon setup a minute beforehand, while the where the farm efficiency teams they will tend to play on three lanes, they converge on mid lane, and then they forego what's happening in the side lane 1 minute before the Drake, whereas the map control teams they are always aggressively playing on two lanes, overloading one side of the map in order to fight for control for the Drake by forcing their opponents to onto that side of the map. As for a more detailed explanation of how these two things match up at the moment, do refer to one of the previous videos that I posted regarding the MSI Drake setup meta. Now, if we were to profile the teams who have made it to the Rumble stage, RNG and Damwon, I would say they are both highly competent teams in two very separate schools of thought. Damwon Kia is more of the same from what we saw from the World Championship in 2020. They play for a very farm efficient style, they played a very effective Drake stacking style, and they're highly competent at it. Whereas RNG, they've invented a new answer and a new style of their own, where they've played around the top lane, where they played for Rift Herald, and they played very effectively to get the top laner hit and create leads on the map. The next team that falls under this category is Mad Lions, where they have been very effective at playing around a mid jungle centric strategy, where they would use that to get leads for the jungler and then create leads on the map for themselves. PSG Talent and Cloud9 on the other hand, while they while PSG Talent leans more towards the map control side of the spectrum, and I think Cloud9 is kind of going through an internal team identity crisis where they're trying to figure out which style or which school of thought they want to belong to. Both of these two teams they have shown, I would say, fatal flaws in their game in terms of understanding how they want to execute either identity. And in the group stages so far of Plains, Damwon, they tried dabbling a little bit with the map control style, where they drafted a very RNG composition in their game against C9, and I'll call this Damwon strategy B, where I felt that it was very detached from what they needed to do to effectively execute such a strategy. So if I were to look at this point of time, and from my previous video where I think that the map control style does have a solved solution to deal with the farm-centric style at this point of time, I do think that the winner of MSI will come from this category. And it will be a very interesting matchup between Royal Never Give Up and the Mad Lions to determine who wins MSI. To break this matchup down further, once again, RNG, I think they will be the favorites in this matchup. In two teams that have this stylistic mirror, the first Herald and its usage will be a very key factor to determining who wins this. And a very big factor determining that Rift Herald is going to come down to the top lane. And in this scenario, Xiaohu against Armut. I think in the current meta, where Gnar, Jace, and Lee Sin seem to be three of the top laners that are being picked at MSI at the moment, I would say there's a certain degree of this being a skill matchup, and I do think the Xiao should come out ahead against Armut, who has struggled with the laning phase throughout his entire spring split in the LEC itself, struggling against the likes of Odoamne and Wonder, the international class level of LEC. And if we were to expand out to look at their X Factor or their niche picks, Xiaohu definitely he can pull out the pocket mages, but Lucian has definitely been a very key part of his arsenal. But Armut's Wukong, which has been his signature pick for some time now, might be an interesting X Factor over here, because if we were to consider Wukong's effectiveness against the likes of Lucian or these compositions that create double AD carry scenarios, Wukong would actually be a very interesting and effective counter pick. But the more interesting thing to examine in this matchup, and where I think Mad Lions might be able to find a win, is actually the matchup between Humanoid and Cryan. Now, both of these two players, they played mostly mages throughout the spring split, and with the shift into the MSI meta, I think these three pet champions are going to go out of vogue, especially with the two lane-centric style that both of these two teams are playing. It will favor more the skirmish heavy likes of these champions that are also within their champion pools. The overlap between these two players is going to be the Sylas and the Ryze, but Humanoid has got access to the Lucian, the Zoe, and the Kali, whereas Cryan, in his match history, he could be picking up the Nocturne or the Rumble if he doesn't decide to show us a new champion on stage itself. Now, the Ryze here is likely going to be the contested pick, with Cryan having 100% having 100% win rate on the champion. But if Mad Lions were to find a victory over Royal Never Give Up, getting a good read on the mid meta would be extremely key for them, where we would see Humanoid create a significant lead for him and be able to then outperform Xiaohu on the side lanes through the lead that he creates over Cryan. And with that, this is my take as to how I think Mad Lions has a possible chance to win MSI, while RNG are still going to be the favorites. I hope you've enjoyed this content. I apologize for not having been able to put out as much MSI content as I would have liked to, but now that the Rumble stage games are starting, I'll see what I can do. So do give this video a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more analytical breakdowns and content for MSI.